So we are right at the beginning of February, which means that Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And of course, when you think of Valentine's Day, you often think of roses or chocolate. Well, in today's Cephalabon contributor video, we're going to be talking about a dozen roses. These are 12 rose-based fragrances in my collection that I absolutely love. I'm also going to be telling you about a very special giveaway, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin this video and I talk to you about 12 of my favorite rose-based fragrances in my collection, and I tell you about why I love them so much and also what makes each one unique and different from one another, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and of course, give this video a thumbs up if you take something of value from today's episode. Now, there are multiple draws associated with this review, courtesy of Cephalabon and all of the fragrant partners that have teamed up for this video. If you would like to enter the draw, just make sure you check out cephalabon.com. All of the links are going to be down below. Read through the article, and after you've become a registered reader, just read a comment on the article. That's it. And just make sure to check back to the article on the date that is specified in the article to see if you're one of the lucky winners. There are going to be multiple winners. Just be mindful of the date, and also be mindful of the fact that winners will only be announced on cephalabon.com. I won't contact you. I'm not going to pin any comments down below. I'm not going to reply to you asking you to message me on WhatsApp or anything like that. Winners will only be announced on cephalabon.com. And so this is a very interesting list in my opinion, because these are fragrances, some of which I've owned for many, many years, and I have very fond memories with them, very positive associations. And then there are some that I've discovered as early as this year because they happen to be brand new releases. And so with that being said, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day, whether you're celebrating it with a special someone or alone at home with a good book or a glass of wine or whatever you want to do. So I hope you have a wonderful day this Monday, or not this coming Monday, but the Monday that is Valentine's Day. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And the first fragrance that I want to talk about is by the designer brand of Bulgari, and this one is called Garanat. Now, of course, this fragrance is inspired by the gemstone of garnet, which is why it has that red top here. And this is a fragrance that was composed by Jacques Cavalier. Now, this fragrance is rose and incense. It's a beautiful rose, very sort of soft and simple. There is a sort of linearity about it. It's not overly complex, but it's a very beautiful, natural smelling rose. Very addictive, very easy to wear, but also very powerful as well. You're going to get really good longevity and performance from this fragrance. The next fragrance I want to talk about goes into spicy territory, and that's because it contains the note of cumin. As soon as I mention that, I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm about to reveal, by Labo. This one is called Rose 31. Now, this is quite a few years old. I acquired my bottle on February 18th, 2013. It's so hard to imagine I've had this one for 9 years now. I bought this one in Nolita. And this is just a beautiful, spicy, rose-based fragrance. I've seen a lot of other brands release their own sort of interpretation of this. This is a bit on the darker side. It's a bit on the daring side. Cumin is one of those ingredients where, you know, you might really, really love it, or maybe it doesn't work too well with your skin chemistry. So it's definitely a fragrance that I would recommend that you sample first before setting out to buy a full bottle. The next fragrance here, now we're entering soapy territory. This is a fragrance that just came out towards the latter half of last year by the brand Parfums de Rosine. This one is called Bulgari de Rose. And this is such a beautiful soapy rose fragrance. And so when we're thinking of rose-based perfumes that are a little bit on the clean side, they sort of convey this aura of tranquility, peacefulness, and cleanliness. This does such a beautiful job, and that soap accord that is found in the heart of this perfume is really, really well done and quite photorealistic, and I think it adds this pure quality to the rose. Very unique rose-based perfume. If you're a fan of clean, soapy fragrances, definitely check out Bulgari de Rose. The next fragrance I want to talk about is another staple in my collection, very much like Rose 31. I have owned this one for many, many years. I think I even purchased this one back in 2012 or 2013 by Tom Ford, part of the private blend line. This is Noir de Noir. Now this fragrance is rose and patchouli, but it's a very earthy patchouli, and it has a chocolatey nuance about it. And so of course you think of roses and chocolate, that is kind of like the stereotypical Valentine's Day fragrance. And coincidentally, there is another fragrance by Mancera called Roses and Chocolate, also great, but I think I've spoken about it way too much in rose-based videos, and so I retired it this year. I wanted to offer new content and perhaps make some recommendations of fragrances that you might not have necessarily heard of before. Now this next one, there's a chance you have heard of it before because it's one of my favorite rose-based fragrances of all time. It's marketed towards men, but this one by the brand Amouage is called Lyric Man, or Lyric for Men. Now, very much like Garanat by Bulgari, this is also an incensey rose fragrance, but this also has a bit of a citrusy freshness up on top on account of the note of lime. So it opens up very bright, citrusy. It has a very unique, quirky accent in the opening, but it also has a combination of different incense ingredients, so that makes it actually a bit more complex than Garanat. I think Garanat is a little bit more so on the simpler side of things, whereas Lyric Man is a bit more complex, but the rose in here is so organic smelling, so natural smelling. Definitely one of my favorites. Another wonderful rose-based fragrance by the brand Montale. It's called Rose Night. Now this is a rose and patchouli fragrance. And so this is a rose fragrance that definitely takes an earthy twist. And so I think what the patchouli does, in a stark contrast to Noir de Noir, it doesn't possess a chocolatey quality. Instead, it kind of adds like this earthy, natural, organic, verdant quality to the rose that almost makes the rose smell that much more realistic and that much more organic. And so there are a lot of rose-based fragrances where the rose ingredient is kind of disguised and you have all of these other ingredients sort of overpowering or overshadowing it. That is definitely not the case. The rose is in the forefront of this composition, but it also has enough of that kind of herbal patchouli that adds this organic green quality to the fragrance. Really unique. Of course, the next one is marketed for women, but I love the way that this one smells. Totally beautiful. By Parfums de Rosine. This one is called Delina Exclusive. I believe it came out in 2018. The perfumer is Quentin Biche. And this one, very much like its younger sister, Delina. Delina is rose, peony, but Delina Exclusive has this added note of Madagascan vanilla in the base that just makes it so sultry and sweet and sensual. And it's a brilliant composition that also adds this flirtatious touch of lychee fruit for this unconventional twist. The next fragrance I want to talk about is a new fragrance from a new brand by Milano Fragranze. This one is called Brera. Now Brera is also kind of on the sweet side of things. There is vanilla in the base here. There's also labdanum, so it has this exotic resinous ambery quality, but it also has a spicy kick to it. There's chili pepper in here, and there's also saffron. So right in the opening, you have that spicy explosion. You're like, whoa, right? This is a spicy rose in a way that is very different from Rose 31 by Le Labo. But this eventually dries down to something sweet, warm, amicable. Rose 31 just stays kind of spicy and dry throughout this entire life. And so Brera is a beautiful fragrance, so many from this brand that I would definitely recommend you check out. Many of which include Naviglio and La Prima, and I think they're just doing very, very well. The next fragrance is available at Perfumology if you're interested in getting a sample or purchasing it. And this one also has a couple different varieties of rose in it. Such a beautiful rose that kind of enters musky territory. And I say that because not only does it contain musk, but in the opening it also has black currant, which can kind of give off a musky vibe. And by Le Jardin Retrouvé, this one is called Rose Trocadero. Such a beautiful rose-based fragrance, especially if you're looking for a clean rose, but something that's also kind of on the musky side of things. The fragrance in my number 3 spot, and these are really in no particular order. It really all depends on my mood. I think all of them are equally beautiful and they all have something very special to bring to the table. Sometimes I seek a soapy rose, sometimes a sweeter rose, sometimes a fruitier rose. You get the gist. The next one by État Libre d'Orange is called Spice Must Flow. Now this is a beautiful Turkish rose based fragrance, and I think it's a little bit on the pricey side, but the Turkish rose that's in here is so elegant, so natural smelling, and of course, as is conveyed by the name, spice must flow. It does definitely have a spicy component to it, so you are going to get this cardamom vibe in the opening. You're also going to get a bit of ginger from it as well, but the rose is definitely the focal point of this fragrance. It sits very comfortably in the spotlight. Beautiful Turkish rose based fragrance, and what a hit by État Libre d'Orange. They have many fragrances that I truly love. This is probably like my 8th or 9th bottle from the brand. I really enjoy the fragrances that they've been putting out. Another one that you can easily find online to either purchase or sample. So if I do find links for any of these fragrances, I certainly will be leaving them down below. Now, the next fragrance I want to talk about, and we're getting close to the end of the list here, by Initio Parfums, it's called Atomic Rose. Now, this fragrance not only contains Turkish rose, but it also has Bulgarian rose. And of course, there's so many varieties of rose out there: damask rose, rose centifolia, May rose, so on and so forth. So it's a beautiful ingredient that manifests itself in a few different varieties. Atomic Rose definitely has a bit of a darker, sweeter twist. You're also going to get hedione molecule from it. And then, of course, in the base, you do get kind of a sweeter element from it. I definitely get vanilla, and I think there's vanilla from Madagascar listed in the note breakdown. For me, I've always said that Atomic Rose kind of smells like a mix between Delina and Intense Cafe by Montale. So if you take that sort of vanilla coffee dry down of Intense Cafe, you combine it with that magnetic rose quality from Delina, you have a really beautiful fragrance. Atomic Rose is an incredible fragrance lasting a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, all of the fragrances in this list last a pretty long time. And some of these brands like Montale, Amouage, they've already kind of established that reputation of lasting an incredibly long amount of time. And the last one that I'd like to share with my audience and the Cephalabon audience is a fragrance that I have loved for a few years now, and it's such an amazing, also Turkish rose and Bulgarian rose based fragrance, but it also has a fruity component to it. So you see there's a lot of variety and diversity curated within this list. So you have the musky rose, the incensey rose, the citrusy rose, the earthy rose, the fruity and sweet rose, the spicy rose, the chocolatey rose, the soapy rose, and now we have the fruity rose on account of pineapple and red berries. But in the base, you have cashmere wood and oak moss, and this is one of the most beautiful fragrances I've ever smelled, not just in terms of it being a rose-based fragrance, one of the most beautiful fragrances I've ever smelled in my life. This one by the brand Kajal is called Lamar. Lamar was composed by Mark Buxton. This gentleman certainly needs no introduction. This is such an incredible composition that opens up very bright and flavorful and ripe and fruity. And then eventually it dries down to this beautiful combination of rose that is so sensual, so romantic. And all of these fragrances here have an element of romance about them, right? Some of them are a bit more timid, some of them are a bit more aggressive, but of course, whichever one you end up liking and falling in love with will of course depend on your personal taste, because scent is subjective. But I'm so happy I've had the opportunity to share 12 of my favorite rose-based fragrances with you. I hope you enjoyed this list. I hope you took something of value from this list. If you did, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Of course, make sure to enter the giveaway at cephalabon.com for your chance to win a bottle. And there's going to be multiple draws hosted for the same giveaway. And so all of the information is going to be down below in the description box. Good luck, everybody. Please be mindful of where you reside in the world, as some giveaways will be open to the US only. Some of them will be international, and so you're going to see a lot of goodies sprinkled in there. So thank you for watching. Happy Valentine's Day. This has been A Dozen Roses. I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.